We won't get another shot at this. I want Joel to watch over her.
What on earth do the Fireflies want with you?
We ain't talking about some walk in the park here.
They're coming.
I know!
At least they're predictable. It's the normal people that scare me.
So, Kash, do you remember a time when games used to be about having fun? You know, you used to turn up and used to play as some kind of little cartoon mascot, and you'd bounce around a colourful forest level, and you'd just be having fun trying to get the high score.
Yep, I remember those days. They were fun days.
Yeah, they were fun days because The Last of Us is probably as far removed from that shit as humanly possible.
Absolutely. It's definitely not your average Mario / Zelda / Sonic / whichever mascot for whatever console you want to kind of bring up. It's just a complete and utter role reversal.
Yeah.
I mean, there was times where you just kind of hoping something joyous would come and take you away from the seriousness and the grittiness, but yeah, that was never to be.
No, there's not a lot of laughs in this, to say the least.
With good reason, I think, but yeah, we'll get onto that shortly.
Yeah, so today we are here to review The Last of Us, which is a PlayStation 3 exclusive created by Naughty Dog of Uncharted fame in recent years, although personally I know them more for the Jak and Daxter games.
Ah, okay. So you're not big fan of Uncharted then?
Do you know what? Honestly, it's not that I'm a big fan of it. I've never actually got around to playing them.
Why did you bring this up when we were doing the other podcast on News of the Week? Because obviously Simon got drilled because of Red Dead Redemption. I got drilled because of Bioshock Infinite.
I would like to point out that the Uncharted series are a PS3 exclusive, and the other two are multi-platform, meaning they're more available. That's my excuse.
Well, last time I checked, Mr. Ruffle, you had a PS3.
I do, yes, I do. I mean, to be honest, I've actually gone back and bought the Jak and Daxter trilogy as well, so it's not like I've been boycotting Naughty Dog this generation or anything, so... but goddamn, I used to love Jak and Daxter. Well, not so much the first one. The first one was a cutesy, like we were saying, actually a cutesy fucking cartoon platformer.
Yeah.
The second and third one were more akin to like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, I was going to say they kind of ditched all that, and it was like running around with guns and cars and all kinds of weird and wonderful shit. And I honestly couldn't believe at the time that this was a Jak and Daxter game. Like this was a game that I'd been running around and collecting these weird, wonderful orbs and.
Yeah.
I was talking meerkat, for lack of a better description, with me. But yeah, it was definitely kind of a break from the norm, or definitely what you'd expect from a sequel.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Mario just kind of going into Manhunt or something.
Yeah, which I would love to see. Jesus Christ. Putting carrier bags over mushrooms' heads. Well, actually, in a kind of twisted way, you could kind of see The Last of Us as that game because you technically are fighting mushroom people.
Yep, you are. Just seen plastic bags, I guess.
Yeah, I've never. To be honest, I gotta say, Manhunt is the only game I've seen that uses plastic bags as a weapon.
As an equipable weapon, which you can then use to kill in 3 varieties of ways. Yeah, I have to give it credit for that. Definitely.
It did a lot. It did a lot right, Manhunt.
Didn't do itself many favors in many countries, but yeah, it did a lot right.
So, sorry, yes, getting back on track. So, yeah, we're here to review The Last of Us, which is Naughty Dog's new intellectual property. They're taking a break from the Uncharted series. I think it's a bit of a pattern with Naughty Dog in that they do like to do trilogies, then move on.
Yeah.
And in itself, The Last of Us seems like it almost might be a break from that tradition because this is very much it feels very much like a standalone, fully realized story that doesn't need any sequels, doesn't need any follow-up.
No, I agree. It's actually quite weird to kind of say, yeah, this is a game that doesn't need an addition. It doesn't need DLC. It doesn't need a sequel. It doesn't need a comic novel produced kind of afterwards to show you the events afterwards. It's just a complete game.
Yeah, it's
kind of rare. I mean, I suppose the Uncharted games, you could class each one as a complete game, but then you could kind of argue that, well, like Indiana Jones and like Tomb Raider, he would have different adventures in different places. You could go there.
Yeah.
Whereas in Last of Us, it just finishes on a hinge and you just kind of think, you don't really want to go on anymore. There's no reason to kind of go on any more adventures.
No.
That is it. You've done the adventure.
That's it. You've seen these two characters' story through to the end, and that's all there is to it. And it's kind of, I think it's more effective the way it does leave things. That it kind of lets you imagine what might happen, and I think that's always quite a good way to end things, where you can kind of fill in the blanks yourself.
Yeah.
But I think we're probably maybe jumping ahead of ourselves. So yeah, The Last of Us. It's basically well, I suppose you could say it's kind of like a survival horror game, really.
Yeah, and many aspects of it are you're kind of on edge and you're kind of running low on supplies, and you have to kind of use your wits rather than running in guns blazing.
Yeah, definitely.
But then there's also times where you're fighting, well, humans, for the lack of a better word, rather than just the mushroom people. So yeah, I would be happy to kind of give it a survival horror. I mean, God, even more so than Resident Evil 6. Consideration.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. This is far more of a survival horror than Resident Evil 6.
I think ever since Resident Evil 4, it's been more of a survival horror, really.
Yeah, it's been focusing more on more on the action side of things, Resident Evil. But I mean, this is weird because we say it's a survival horror, but at the same time, I think this does action better than the latter Resident Evils as well, because everything about this game is so fluid. But what I first want to do, I thought we might fill in the gap, what this game's actually about.
Sure.
Because I think we've established that, at least in part, that this is more or less a zombie apocalypse game.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a zombie apocalypse game with a difference in that it's really got more akin to something like the novel or the movie The Road, where it's more about the kind of grim realities of human life after the end of the world, rather than scary monsters.
Yeah, I suppose you could consider Walking Dead as well, in that it's not about the zombies, it's about life after the zombies.
Well, it's funny you say that, because The Walking Dead, if there was any game that I thought this reminded me of, was the Walking Dead game, not in terms of gameplay, but in terms of that kind of dynamic, that storyline where it's about the people with zombies around, and it goes even further in that you are playing a character called Joel, who is tasked with looking after a young girl called Ellie.
Yep.
Whereas in The Walking Dead, you play an older guy who's looking after a child as well. Now, it's slightly different dynamics, because in this, Joel is older. Joel's actually quite old in the bulk of the game.
I think, yeah, I mean, when it first starts, his daughter is, gosh, at least maybe 10 to 13 years old.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't want to kind of go into this too much, but then you kind of you get an idea of how old he is by that, and then the game takes place 20 years after.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, like, just judging by how old his daughter was, and he's really graying in the main game. He has to be in his 50s at least.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you go back and play the intro again, you kind of see how young he is. And I suppose when you're playing the main game, you don't give it much thought, but when you go back, you think, all right, well, he looks a hell of a lot younger and a hell of a lot older when you compare.
Yeah. Which I actually thought was cool, because it gives you an older protagonist who has seen the world kind of fall into this devastation as these kind of infected have taken over. And he's such a world-weary guy. And straight away off the bat, it kind of establishes, at least I thought it did, that this guy, he's not a monster and he's not a bastard by any stretch of imagination, but he's certainly not clean-cut. He's quite shady.
Yeah.
I kind of got the impression that straight away that as the game opens up, you and your kind of female partner, Tess, who joins you early on in the game, you were pretty much like gun runners and drug dealers in this kind of quarantine zone.
It's weird. It's like you're not playing the all and out good guy. Like in Uncharted, you are the hero. I mean, he's a bit of a kind of a cliche spewing cheesy hero, but I mean, you're a hero nonetheless. Whereas it's like you're a survivor. I mean, I don't want to kind of use the term bad guy, because I don't think that's really true either. But I think the term...
I don't know, because one thing that really struck me about Joel is at the beginning, I think you're right in saying that he's a survivor, but as the game went on, I don't want to spoil too much, but as the game went on, I honestly thought, shit, this guy is worse than anybody I'm actually coming up against, monster or not.
Yeah.
There are some bits later on in the game which are really dark, and he kind of does them for good reasons, but sometimes it's just way over the top.
I think a lot of the time, yeah, he's doing it because he's so accustomed to them, and he's just so stuck in that way of thinking and that way of assuming that this is the only way to survive and this is the only way to kind of move forward in life.
Yeah, and he's very detached from any kind of emotion he even goes so far as to say throughout the game that, we don't talk about things, we drop them and we move on.
Yeah.
And there's even a character you meet later in the game who alludes to like the early days of when the infection broke out and they had to go to some like severe lengths to survive. And Joel's like, I was justified in doing that, and the other character's like, look, it wasn't worth it. We've lost our humanity for what the fuck we did in them days, and it was too much.
Exactly.
And yeah, there's just a real sense that Joel is probably the most psychotic person in this game. I mean, he's not an all-out like murderer, like for the sake of it, but goddamn, he is dark when it comes to it.
Yeah, there are times in the game where you just see like his kind of dark side and then his darker side. There isn't a light side in him at all.
Not really.
It's just it is kind of going back to that scene where he's having the discussion quite early on in the game, and they're talking about his humanity. He has kind of lost his humanity, and I think this game, in part of it, is him trying to claim it back. But
yeah, it is, and I think the opening scene, which is actually I've put on the YouTube channel, which I'll put in this article as well, but the opening scene, I think, is what is kind of explains why he's like this, because because throughout the infection, he's only really ever had to bother with himself. Yeah. And he can just detach himself, and he's got nothing to lose, so he doesn't give a shit what he does as long as he survives a bit longer. Yeah.
He just wants to kind of, survive, live, whatever you want to call it. He just wants to kind of get there and do it.
It's quite interesting, the fact that, though, he's obsessed with, anything necessary to survive, but when you really step back and take a look at it, he's not really surviving for a whole lot. I mean, he's got no friends as such. He's got no loved ones as such. He's got really nothing other than him and Tessa's kind of little racketeering business they've got going on. And I mean, really, I don't know if that's a particularly lucrative activity either, or I didn't even really get I didn't really get the full extent of their relationship, him and Tess, his female companion, because it really alludes to the fact that they're not really a couple, but they're more business partners. But at the same time, I kind of got the feeling that maybe there was something between them, purely on a kind of there's no one else around. Yeah,
it's kind of like, the best of what we've got.
Yeah, I think they were business partners with maybe benefits on the side. But I got to say, I think Tess actually, there's a lot of characters in this game, despite having an overwhelming sense of isolation, but there's a lot of characters in this game who are very, very well drawn. I mean, Tess, I thought, was a great character because she isn't just Joel's girlfriend. She felt like the dominant one in their relationship. She felt like the boss of the organization.
She definitely kind of had her own strength, and she definitely kind of wasn't afraid to kind of speak her mind and take lead. And she essentially gave Joel the lead when she gave him an order, and that's what drives him for the rest of the game.
Well, yeah, in the early parts when you're going about your business with her, you're almost like her enforcer. She's the kind of brains of the outfits. You're just the muscle that backs her up.
Yeah, Master Blaster. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, you play as Joel, and the bulk of the story of this game is you're essentially giving charge of this girl called Ellie, this 14-year-old girl called Ellie, who is special. And basically you're charged with getting her to this group called the Fireflies, who are committed to re-establishing order and finding a cure for this kind of fungal infection that turns people into mushroom zombies. Yeah. And basically you go on your way across America, outside the kind of safe quarantine zones which are military ran, across this kind of infected wasteland that seems to be populated by either mushroom zombies that want to rip out your throat, or bandits who want to rip out your throat.
And not many things in between. Everything amount. Generally wants to rip out your throat.
Yeah, if they're feeling kind, because there are some worse things as you go on, and some worse people as things progress.
Oh yeah, I mean, you've kind of got, as you play through, you see people that Joe has met throughout his journey, such as the chap in the city.
Oh, Bill.
Bill, that's it. I could remember.
I really liked Bill. And I fucking loved that section, that early section where you go into this town to find your contact Bill. And it's basically this town where it's basically just this hard-ass redneck who lives in a complete isolation because he doesn't trust people. And he's so kind of loopy that he uses the infected as a kind of form of defense from other people coming to his town.
Yep.
And you basically got to infiltrate his town, and there's a great sequence where you, him, and Ellie are running through this town, just taking on hordes of infected, and it just highlights this great mix of gameplay where you're shooting going into hand-to-hand combat and then just frantically running away, like in this really exciting sequence, all three of you. And I just thought it was great. And I thought Bill was a cool character because there's a lot of depth to him. He was quite complex, despite him only being in one section.
Yeah.
I mean, did you kind of pick up on the fact that he was actually gay?
I did, but it was only towards. I mean, maybe I should backtrack a bit. When you kind of first meet Bill, you kind of see how loopy he is, and I suppose he and Ellie are probably the only comedic element in the game because they're bounding with each other. Like he is just skeptical of anyone, and he probably hates women, and he probably hates kids. So having Ellie in front of him is kind of the vision of everything he generally despises more than the average man.
I don't think her hitting him with a pipe helps much either.
And yeah, there was that as well. But I mean, throughout the game, they're always kind of sniping at each other and taking chunks out of each other.
Yeah.
And it is quite funny, but you notice Joel never takes any part of it.
No, he's so distant from everything.
Yeah, yeah. But then going back onto the comment about you saying him kind of his friend, you kind of don't hear much of it to begin with, but as you're kind of going along through town with Bill, he's always talking about this other guy that was with him and this other chap.
He says it's his partner. Now, the way he kind of talks about it, he says, he's my partner like you and Tess.
Yeah.
And as I said before, you don't really know sense that Tess and Joel are together in a proper relationship, but they're just business partners. So I was thinking, it was just a friend who he helped run his particular organisation with, but...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you kind of think it's just like Joel and Tess. They just kind of, strength in numbers. I'm going to have a partner. He's part of my war pack. He's going to look out for me. I'm going to look out for him. And then it kind of goes on to a kind of a deeper scale. And then you realize that something went very wrong between him and his partner. And he could tell this is probably why he is like he is at the moment.
Yeah.
He even makes a line, I once had someone I cared about, and the only thing that's good for is getting you killed. And
and it does kind of hints that things have obviously gone very wrong, and as it progresses, as you say, you kind of start realizing that maybe it wasn't just his friend, and then of course
maybe it's something a little bit more,
and then of course Ellie cements the fact that there's a bit where she's looking at a stack of magazines he has, and he basically tells her not to fucking take any because they're his, and she obviously, when his back's turned talking to Joel, she nabs a handful, and she's sitting in the back of a car later on, and she pulls out this gay porno mag, and that's like, oh yes, he was indeed gay.
I think if there was any kind of suspicion, that was kind of like cemented.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think cemented is the appropriate word because I think she says why the pages fit together. And I thought that was good. I thought that was class.
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, we said there's not a lot of humor in this, but I gotta say, Ellie it just made me smile like continuously through this. Which maybe we should go on to her. Yeah,
I mean, she is just a girl, and it just sounds really obvious when they say that, but she's not just kind of an AI. Kind of, I'm going to follow you wherever you go. She does have emotions, she has feelings, she has thoughts, she has ideas, she has aspirations, she has kind of all the things that Joel doesn't. Whereas Joel is just kind of a hollow shell of a man. Ellie very much still has her soul.
Oh yeah, and I thought they were an absolutely amazing kind of duo. They were such great counterparts to each other.
Yeah.
And I mean, just Ellie in herself, I think, is probably one of the best realized characters I've ever seen in a video game. I absolutely loved her so much.
I can't remember being kind of that attached to a character since, I don't know, I think Heavy Rain is probably the only other time.
Well, it was very reminiscent of Bioshock Infinite for me, because I really, really liked Elizabeth in that as well. But for my money, as much as I praised Bioshock Infinite for what it did with Elizabeth, I think Ellie is a more well-rounded, a deeper, a more interesting character, and she's actually slightly more useful in gameplay mechanics than Elizabeth ever was, because she's less gimmicky in that Ellie is, what's great is Ellie will help you out throughout the game in gameplay mechanics, but it kind of ties into her character, because if there's one thing I kind of really stood out about Ellie for me, is that she is so fucking brave. It's unreal. She has like no real, it's not that she doesn't have any fear, it's that she just doesn't really seem to care. Yeah,
it's at the beginning she's very kind of timid and shy, but then as she sees kind of the brutal nature of Joel and Tess, and Joel later on, she kind of comes out of her shell. She kind of realizes, if I'm going to survive, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
And she kind of manages, she doesn't kind of lose herself throughout it all, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, she still is this kind of inquisitive young girl with a sense of humor. She just hardens the hell up towards the latter part of the game.
She manages, to keep that, like, a dark side and a good side. She always manages to kind of keep them separate from each other. And during the game, it's like like you said, she is useful, but you never, ever, ever, ever in a million years going to rely on her to kind of help you out in the jam. And I mean, that's the point. She's not there to help you out. She's not there to lead the pack, as it were. I mean, you're Joel, you're the grown-up, you're the kind of the one leading, but she will kind of surprise you. She will kind of occasionally throw a brick at someone or jump on someone's back, if you haven't kind of spotted them before. She'll yell out, someone's coming behind you.
One thing that really surprised me is this guy snuck up behind me and pinned me to a wall and was trying to strangle us, and all of a sudden she, as you said, jumped on his back, and then just stabbed him with a little switchblade that she carries around. Yeah. I thought, fuck me, that was so much, it was just so surprising and so good.
Yeah, I remember a time, I think we were kind of separated, for lack of a better word. I mean, she was still meant to be following me, but I was behind a cover on one side, and she was behind a cover on another side. And there was a guy coming, and he was obviously going to turn left or right and see one of us. And as he was going to turn to me, I was about to run out and grab him, but Ellie ran and jumped him, as you say, started stabbing him, and then I was able to finish him off. And I was like, that actually kind of set me back. I was like, whoa, that is nothing I've ever seen like before. That was really incredible.
Coming back to something you said, actually, the kind of little gameplay quirks that Ellie brings, what I noticed is as the game progresses, they become wider ranging and more frequent. Yeah. Like at the beginning of the game, you're fighting a lot of infected. Like, one of the early stages of the game is Bill's Town, which is full of infected. And you'll, say an infected runs into a room and you grapple with them and smash his skull open. She'll, after the dust settled and the fight's over, she'll, exclaim, oh, fuck, that was intense. Yeah. And as the game goes on, she starts getting less less shocked and excited by fights, and more kind of, right then, it's business time, and she kind of
usual,
she helps out. She mans up. She really kind of starts going for it later on in the game and helping out a lot more and becoming far harder and less kind of just. I mean, she's been very shielded, and what's interesting about Ellie as another counterpart to Joel's character is that she has never known the world to be any different. She's only 14. The infection's been going for 20 years, and
that's all she ever knows.
Yeah, she doesn't know. She's never even. I mean, early on in the game, there's a part where you're walking through the woods, and she's like, "Wow, this is really cool." And Joe's like, "What? Walking through the woods?" And she's like, "Yeah, I've never done it before."
Never seen anything like this before. Yep.
To get to 14 and not walk through the woods because you're stuck in a quarantine zone, it's kind of like a strange counterpart to Joel's character. And what else it does is it kind of makes her this really kind of inquisitive young girl, and she's always asking questions about the old world, and she's very interested in it.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it, saying it 20 years later, because if you can have a young girl who's been through it all, she's probably not going to be as naive about the world and what's going on than what she is now.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got her, she's almost a clean slate in terms of what to introduce her to new experiences.
Well, that's right. As soon as you take her out the quarantine zone, it's completely new to her.
Exactly. And I mean, just even arbitrary things like she saw a movie poster, and then she makes a comment like, what's this? And Joel's like, oh, it's a movie. Like, people would go, it was quite popular back in the day, and I took someone to see it. And there's another time where she looked at a model. And she's, why is that girl so skinny? And Joel's like, because it's kind of, she's like, I thought you had food back in those days. I thought everything was like quite, in abundance. And Joel's like, well, for beauty. And then she's like, well, that's a bit daft. Why would you do that? Why would you starve yourself for beauty? And it's just,
no, you're right.
I can't imagine a 13-year-old girl in this day and age in England, or even in the Western society, saying anything like that.
I know, it's crazy, and it just, I don't know, it just made it so much more endearing. She's so naive, and it was just kind of, it was nice to see her kind of get educated about the world, and as such, it was just a nice little, it kind of helped form a bond between Joel and her.
Yeah, it did.
And I mean, there was another example where you visit a music shop, and she's flicking through all the records, and she's completely shocked that, all this music's just left here and nobody bothered taking it.
Yeah.
So it's some kind of rare commodity.
Did you get the, or did you listen to the jokes?
Oh, I was going to bring this up. No, I didn't, but I have seen a video.
Oh, they're brilliant. I actually went back and did that scene again just because I actually missed it, and I thought, I wonder what that was, and I went back, and I'm glad I did. It's just the cheesiest stuff ever. But then there's she tells really kind of one-line jokes, that are puns.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of an example. And she kind of doesn't understand them sometimes.
I know.
She's kind of like, I don't get it. Maybe they're too grown up for her, or maybe she just doesn't understand. And there's times where, she gets it, she's like, oh yeah, I get it. And then Joel, I think there's a time where Joel actually kind of chuckles a little bit. He's like, I haven't heard that before.
Well, did you just see the one sequence? Because there's a few of them peppered
There's
throughout the game.
3, yeah, I listened to all 3.
Yeah, I thought that was good because there's one as well where there's more than just Joel hanging around, and I thought it was interesting to see how they react to the jokes as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. That was really good.
But there's a few little hidden things in the game actually, because isn't there a sex line hidden in the game? It's actually been patched out.
It has been
today.
patched out. Yeah. If you're lucky enough to live in the States, or you have enough money to burn that you like to ring the number in the States, you could probably find that number online, dial it, and it will take you to, as Ben said, a sex line. I think it's quite common in games to put little shit like that in, thinking that somebody will ring it and it's just a bit of a ha-ha joke. But, I mean, originally they said that the artist put a 555 number in there to stop them from actually ringing and it actually hitting someone, or actually hitting a line. But for some reason it didn't work and it went straight to a sex line. But as you say, that's been patched out, that's been cleared out. Personally, it wouldn't have affected me. I never would have dialed that number.
No.
It doesn't change my opinion of the game knowing that number's in there in any way, shape, or form. If anything, I think I'd probably enjoy it more. Just a little quirk.
I thought it was funny. I like little Easter eggs like that, and it kind of is a bit of sense of humour in this game that's otherwise dreary as hell.
I mean, I don't know why they couldn't have actually made it a sex line in the game, like for a good time, call this number, and just fucking left it.
I know.
But then I suppose there's all legal and copyright and IPs and everything going in.
Well, yeah.
Let's not get into that,
So yeah, I mean, we've talked quite a lot about the different characters. There's quite a, as I say, for a game that does kind of focus on putting you and Ellie in this kind of very isolated situation.
There's a lot of characters.
Yeah, the cast is quite.
That's right. Yeah, the cast is very strong.
Yeah,
you do meet a lot of people on the way. It's not just you and Ellie for like all the game. You do meet people on the way, and they do have a purpose, and they do have an impact, and they do kind of make you have feelings towards them, whether they're good feelings, whether they're bad feelings, whether they're kind of caring, whether they're negative. Again, you do have a reaction to the characters. They're not bland. Again, they're just as strong and well thought out and fleshed out as Ellie and Joel.
Well, that's right. Even characters who don't appear for all that long, they do feel like grounded people, and they do introduce a nice dynamic because they're. I mean, I'm not trying to spoil too much, but there is a part in the first half of the game where you meet another duo who is an adult and a child, much like yourself, and I thought it was a nice shift up in gear, like to team up together.
Yeah.
And I thought it varied things up a little bit, which I really like. But yeah, the characters here are great. I think these are some of the most well-realized characters using a combination of like fantastic voice acting and some great like motion capture, especially on the face.
Yeah, it's just they've taken everything they've learned from over all these years of Uncharted and just made the best that they can with it. It's almost like Uncharted was kind of the tech demo for this game in a weird way.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I got to say, Ashley Johnson, who did Ellie's voice, and Troy Baker, who did Joel's voice, and does every fucking voice of a male character in video games at the moment. I mean, he did Booker DeWitt in Bioshock Infinite as well.
Yeah.
And he also, off the top of my head, I do believe he played Kai Leng in Mass Effect 3 as well. But he's basically the new Nolan North. But
which saying that Nolan North is in this game. I thought they left him out, but
is he?
Yes. Shall I tell you who he is?
Yeah.
David.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I watched the credits and I saw it, I was like, fuck no.
Yeah, I'm just on IMDb.
For those that kind of are not sure what it is, David is a character who is, I don't know, can we give it away? I don't
he's a survivor that that Ellie meets later on in the game.
Yep, he's a survivor that meets Ellie on the game. And if you know the recent roles that Nolan North's done, such as Deadpool and Uncharted, it's a complete reversal from the role he's played.
Yeah.
I won't say any more than that.
No, but again, I don't know if I can get away with saying this without spoiling things too much, but even at that late stage of the game, the story kept taking unexpected turns.
Yeah.
For me personally. And it kept me guessing, which for I'd say this, I mean, how long did this take you to complete? Because I think it took me about 10, 12 hours to get through.
It took me about, I think 12, 13.
It's a long adventure game.
It's great. I love games that will take you a good 12-hour shift to do.
Yeah, and I really like the sense of kind of continuity with it. I mean, there's levels where you're at one edge of a city and you've got to get to the other edge of a city, and it takes such a long time to like navigate your way across this city filled with like monsters and people who want to kill you, as well as traps and obstacles, that it really did feel like you were crossing a city.
Yeah.
It didn't just feel like you were skipping across a level. And I thought that was great. I absolutely loved it. But we've talked a lot about the story and the characters, which are really one of the strongest part of this incredibly strong title. But I suppose linking into maybe the story a little bit, I suppose, you know, the graphics in this game, you know, it's what you look at, nice and pretty. The graphics here, personally, I thought were absolutely stunning.
You normally kind of see the best of what a console can do towards the end of its life cycle.
Yeah.
And I think it's made evident by this game. Just everything is from kind of the dark under cities to like the sewers to like the forests and the kind of greenery to like the wasted cities and the tall buildings and inside the buildings and the office furniture and just things as arbitrary as that. Everything is just really, really, really detailed and really well thought out. It doesn't seem as if anything you just put there for the sake of it. It's almost as like there was a good maybe 10, 12 meetings for one thing before it was placed there.
Yeah, you're right. Everything does feel incredibly vast, but incredibly detailed at the same time.
Yeah.
Nothing feels like it's just been placed there arbitrarily. It feels like it's all been crafted and all been created with a purpose in mind. And the environments, as you said, are incredibly varied. And I love the sense of like nature reclaiming cities.
Yeah.
With the vegetation.
Sometimes it doesn't get well done, I think, in games or even in other media like movies and stuff. But if I have an idea in my head of what Earth is going to look like if we just did fuck all for 20 years, that's probably a really good idea of what's going to happen.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I mean, the environments are lovely.
Yeah.
The character models are what really pop in this game.
Gosh, yes.
They are amazingly beautiful and so detailed. It's just crazy how much detail there in some of these. And again, coming back to Ellie, I thought her character model was absolutely stunning, especially her face.
Yeah.
It looked at times like a real girl, especially in the cutscenes.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't feel like kind of just a really short adult. It looks like a girl.
Yeah, and I mean, Joel was very, very nicely done. And I mean, all the characters are absolutely spectacularly done. Even ones like Bill, who said only appears in a single kind of section of the game. His character model, everything's done at top-notch standard. And the clickers, the really, really far gone mutated zombies who have gone so far that their fungal infection has actually exploded out their skull, blinding them. They were so... If you got up close, you could see such grotesque detail on them.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of kind of concept art and even just kind of in-game model art online. I would encourage people to have a look at it and just see how detailed it is. If you're too scared to get up close and you need to blow them away with a shotgun or whatever, definitely take time offline on your PC, have a look at the models, because it is really something. It is really, really well done. Yeah,
so much work has gone into these, and it just helps. Like we said that the characters are incredibly well voiced and acted, and I think the absolutely gorgeous character models really help bring extra added emotion to the screen. They help convey emotion and subtlety, and that's one thing as well in the cutscenes of this. There's a lot of subtlety in the kind of characters and what they do. There's a bit where early on in the game where Tess is talking to Ellie and Joel's kind of standing around in the background, and you can kind of see he zones out with a conversation and he's staring down at his broken watch, which holds a lot of significance for him personally.
Yeah.
And like Tess has got a shout at him to snap him out of it, and he's kind of like, "Oh, right then, let's go." And I just thought that was really, really subtle. There was something happening in the background, but. Yeah, it's just the subtlety and detail of the kind of graphics and the cutscenes.
Little things that matters, and I think that's what Naughty Dog have taken, and they've applied it kind of tenfold over. Everything just looks good, and even the animation for the characters, both in game and during the cutscenes, is really well done. Like you don't ever, you very rarely feel like you're just a character running into a wall that's just kind of keep running and running, even though there's something blocking him. They kind of have reactions to like to say fire, they'll raise their hands above their face.
Yes.
I mean, Uncharted 3 did that as well, and I think they've taken, again, this is the whole thing, they've taken what they've learned from Uncharted and just kind of made this gem out of it. It's like, an unpolished diamond.
Yes, you're completely right. And when you lean, like you can take cover behind objects, you kind of Joel will put his hands up on them to steady himself as he shimmies round
Yeah.
them, and just things like that. It adds a bit of context to your movements within the game, and yeah, it's just gorgeous, everything about this game. I will say something a bit negative about it now. I'm going to break the trend with regards to the graphics. Now, if there's one thing about this game that was slightly a bit of a letdown after all the universal praise it's been getting, is that I have run into a lot of bugs. Now, I'll go into them as we kind of move on through the review, but one bug with relation to graphics is that only once mind, the textures failed to load in properly, so everything was at incredibly low resolution, which meant that when I was picking up notes that you can find around the place, I couldn't read them. Characters' clothing looked like shit. There's a bit early on in the game where Joel's sprayed with blood. There was no blood on him anymore because it hadn't loaded in, and this lasted until I reset my PS3.
Yeah, it's a lot of people have complained about bugs. Admittedly, I only had one bug that it kind of annoyed me, but I was able to kind of overcome it, and it didn't really spoil the whole thing. But I don't think it is a buggy game, but bugs unfortunately do take you out of that kind of suspension of disbelief.
And what's worse is all the bugs I encountered were in the first 2 days, and after that I have not had a single glitch or blip. And that's frustrating because really, overall, it kind of affected maybe 5% of the game for me. But it's kind of left a bit of a black mark because it was that initial 5%.
Exactly, those are the most important percents that count. If you're not going to captivate your audience, you may as well not bother. And I think if you get bored of a game early on, it's very hard to kind of get the morale to kind of continue on. So I mean, if you have suffered, then it's unfortunate. But as you say, after kind of day one patches, etc., and Naughty Dog fixing the game save bug, which a lot of people had.
Well, it hit me, but I was only an hour into the first game, so it wasn't too bad, but still annoying.
Exactly, it seems okay. So don't be too scared. It does happen, but it looks like it's going to be a minimum. I mean, towards the end, I had absolutely nothing, and I was kind of expecting, someone to kind of walk in with their arms kind of raised to the side in like the T position, when they're modding the characters, but none of that happened, which was really, really thankful. And like I say, it's unfortunate when bugs happen because it takes you away from like the game. It takes you away from that suspension of disbelief. But you can't really blame again. Every game has bugs, and there's never ever going to be any piece of software that has no bugs.
Well, that's it. It's just, as you say, it's unfortunate that kind of hit us early on. But yeah, after I got over that initial stumbling block, nothing's affected me, and they've patched it a good few times in the last week or so. So I think that pretty much ironed out every major issue, or as far as I'm concerned, every minor issue too. You might hit a few blips here and there, but I personally haven't after the second day of owning this game, which was about 2 weeks ago now anyway. So I mean, we can talk about how pretty a game looks and how well, how good the story is, but ultimately we play games for the gameplay.
Yep. Which
is a good job, because I thought the gameplay in The Last of Us was absolutely brilliant. I thought it was incredibly robust, very...
It's actually very simple, but in its simplicity, it's very detailed, and it's very idyllic towards its goal, which is you're a survivor and you have to do things on the fly.
Yeah, I thought actually when you break it down into its kind of key components, I honestly thought that the gameplay was quite broad. Not so much that it covers a lot of topics or covers a lot of areas, but it's the fact that you can kind of slip in and out of these different
roles,
different roles seamlessly, and they all fit together to create this incredibly dynamic experience that's like, it's pretty much like nothing I've really ever really...
It's hard. I can't think of a game that has done something, I mean, other than... well, no, I mean, I was going to say Metal Gear Solid, but even then, no, Metal Gear Solid has a very kind of emphasis on stealth. I mean, it's called tactical espionage action for a reason. And you don't have to stealth this game. You can just go in guns blazing. It's absolutely fine. If you want to,
do you honestly think you could though? Because I think the game will always limit you on your resources.
You will get punished. You will die a lot, but I think you could. I think
practice. You could probably learn enemy layouts and behaviors maybe a little bit and get brute
but
force.
I think ultimately you do need to spend a lot of time behind cover. You do need to pick your fights. You do need to scavenge and collect loot and maybe kind of preempt a fight that may or may not happen and think,
Yeah.
have I got the right gear? Have I got the right things to go into this?
No, you're totally right. This game, I mean, I think this game puts a hell of a lot of emphasis on stealth, but it's not like Metal Gear Solid stealth, which is watch enemies, memorize the paths, and then sneak past them. This is you're basically a jungle predator, stalking your prey and whittling these massive groups of enemies that completely outgun you and Ellie. You're basically like using Batman tactics against them.
It's Batman tactics. You kind of have a detective mode as well, don't you? Because you can kind of crouch to the ground, and it's called kind of listening.
You focus Joel's hearing to let you see through walls, and I thought that was slightly reminiscent of the instinct mode in Hitman Absolution.
Yeah, I think Hitman is the example, and even the detective mode in Batman Arkham City and Arkham Asylum is kind of reminiscent of that. But I had no idea that was in there until I kind of started playing the game. Even the demo, I went through it without using that at all. I just didn't read the kind of tooltip. I just kind of want to get into it, but it works really well. I mean, at first you kind of think this is maybe jumping the shark a little bit. You know, how is he getting this kind of supersonic hearing? But you kind of realize it's not. It has its limitations. If people are still, you're not going to hear them. And there've been times where I've been caught off guard. I've kind of thought, okay, no one's in there. I'm running in. Ran in, I just got absolutely mauled.
Yeah, you're right. It does have its limitations within reasonable human ability. Joel isn't Batman. Exactly. He is a normal guy who just happens to be hard as nails and quite experienced in this kind of area of work. So,
exactly. 20 years experience will do that to you.
Yeah, so he can use his experience and his instincts to do this. And I thought it was really good because it made the stealth more viable, because I hate stealth games that give you no tools to give you that advantage on enemies, because, let's face it, average game players are not Navy SEALs trained in stealth and infiltration. We fuck up and we need extra tools to help us and give us the advantage, because it's not fun trialing and erroring stealth games.
No, it's not. It's not at all.
So I didn't mind having that added tool. I thought it was great. It was very useful, and as you say, it was just limited enough. In that it was useful but not overpowered.
It's good. Exactly. It gives you an edge. It never gives you an advantage.
Exactly.
I think that's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, and what I particularly liked about the stealth is that it wasn't a soft option. Stealth was quite aggressive, and you could use it to really kind of be aggressive.
Yeah.
You go up to people, sneak by them, and you just choke the life out of them, or you can manufacture like homemade shivs and just slice their throats open. You can pick up loose bricks off the ground and stove the skulls in, and you can just really start getting aggressive with this and using kind of hit-and-run tactics on groups of enemies to whittle them down, employing stealth mixed with kind of all-out gunplay and melee attacks. Exactly. And they're kind of the other two pillars of the core gameplay. You've got your guns. Now, the guns feel very powerful, but I don't think they're necessarily the get-out-of-jail-free card you would expect them to be.
No, again, you kind of... It reminds you, you're in this post-apocalyptic, I should say, world, and resources are scarce, including bullets and ammunition.
Yeah, especially bullets and ammunition.
So if you've got a full clip of a weapon, you think you're kind of the biggest kind of cock on the road, as it were. But like in a Call of Duty world, one clip of ammunition is fuck all. That's nothing. Yeah. And you learn how to kind of conserve your ammunition. You learn how to kind of pick fights, and whether a particular gun is going to be suited for a particular instance, or are you going to use an explosive, or are you going to set up a trap and maybe lure somebody in?
Yeah.
It's absolutely right. It doesn't ever make you feel like you kind of a one-man army.
Not at all.
Everyone has the exact same weapons you do, and to be honest, they probably do the exact same damage.
I got a feeling that while Joel is not paper flimsy, he does take a fair hit. I mean, I think about 3 or 4 shots will probably be your limit.
Yeah.
But you can die on a dime. You can turn on a dime in this game if you're not careful. And I say guns feel powerful, but enemies aren't all that flimsy themselves. I mean, it takes 2 shots to the chest to put down a normal infected or a human.
Yeah, if you don't upgrade your weapons, like your pistol will kind of take half your clip if you don't put it in the right position. If you don't hit someone in the head, they're not going to go down. They're just going to keep running at you.
Yeah.
And even I think I had the hunting rifle. I had it fully upgraded, everything, and I was hitting people in the head, and they had helmets on, and they were still getting up and kind of,
Oh, those fuckers with armor on.
yeah. I mean, an infected was like a one-hit kill almost anywhere, but like even if I was shooting people in the leg, they would be getting up and running up to me.
Yeah.
So it's. I mean, upgrading your weapons does have an effect. It does have a visible effect, but again, it doesn't kind of like many games when you get towards the end, it doesn't make you like a one-man army. It doesn't make you...
No, not at all. It always limits you. It always keeps you on the edge of running out of ammo. It does seem to drop ammo when you're getting low, just to keep you going.
Well,
I
mean,
it always makes you think about it.
Yeah, I was going to say again, comparison to Bioshock Infinity. Sorry, Elizabeth throws you ammo, and Ellie occasionally, not nearly as often, will throw you ammo. I don't know if you had that.
No, I never had that.
It happened to me, when you first time you meet the hunters in the infamous car.
Oh, yeah, I've just played that scene this evening, actually. God damn, that's a brutal, that's such an intense scene.
I know, and I was kind of on the edge, and I was running low on revolver ammo, and Ellie's like, here's some ammo, and she chucked it, and in the bottom right-hand corner, it just said, 6 revolver bullets. So I kind of went to a corner, put some bullets in, and started firing again, but it doesn't happen a lot, so... I wasn't expecting to kind of run out of that ammunition and her to kind of give me shotgun ammo or
Yeah, well, I never had it happen to me, and I played through the entire game, so that's what I quite like about Ellie's AI, and AI in general, is that it seems to be able to react in quite a lot of different ways to a lot of different situations.
Yeah.
Making for a lot of unique situations.
Yeah. I don't think I ever had a point where I was completely out of ammo for everything, or I ever kind of thought, shit, I can't go any further because I've just got no ammo. It kind of trickled enough for you to continue, but never enough for you to just kind of power your way through.
Yeah, I think I actually ran out of ammo for everything at one point, but I then took out a few enemies with a melee weapon, and they dropped enough ammo which I could then get a few weapons back up and running and keep going. So I do think the game kind of does monitor how much resource you've got and drops it steadily in as you need it. I don't think it's unfair. I do believe on the higher difficulties, because I'm trying to make my way through the top difficulty at the moment, it is far less likely to do that to you.
Yeah. I'll let you suffer through that.
Yeah, it's quite difficult at the moment. The top difficulty really does make you feel like a survivor.
Yeah,
every bullet really counts.
Is that what you've just done the hunter mode on? That scene on with the hunters.
Yeah. It's.
Yeah, I don't know how you've done that. I was struggling on I think hard or normal. I can't remember.
If you go back and play it, it's amazing how much more resourceful and aggressive you can be on the early stages. Because they are essentially tutorials.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose that's kind of a fair comment. I'll have to when I get some free time give it another bash. But
it is very difficult, though, the top difficulty. But what else about the guns I quite liked is that we've said a few times now that they're very powerful when you actually land your shots, but landing your shots is not an easy task.
Nope, you have absolutely zero stability. Your weapon sways like you're drunk. Don't forget, you're playing Joel. Joel isn't a military man. He was a family man who's kind of had to survive. No one's ever taught him how to hold and really use a gun properly.
Yeah, his guns do.
You can see that in the guns that you use. He's kind of, he kind of sways. The reticle kind of expands and kind of decreases occasionally, even when you're kind of keeping very still. Even crouching down doesn't give you that much of an edge unless you kind of maybe using the hunter rifle, but even then one shot and you have to wait a couple of seconds before you can take another decent shot again. It's very human. It is absolutely human.
It's fantastic. I mean, a lot of people don't realize it, but shooting a gun in real life, it's actually very hard to get a good shot unless you're experienced and trained.
Yeah, it is.
Especially using pistols. God damn, those things are hard to aim. Oh my God. This game really kind of translates that over into the gameplay, and it's really good because it's great when you fight either infected or human enemies, because when you fight infected, you've got these just screaming monsters charging you, and they're not just running at a straight line, they're quite twitchy, and they sway and duck left and right, and they're very hard to hit.
Yeah, they flail around, and they kind of, it's kind of a weird voodoo dance that they do to kind of throw you off. It's strange, it is very strange. And there's different kind of infected. You don't just have these mushroom people. You have kind of the initial infected who are they've just kind of, essentially, they're like the people from 28 Days Later, yeah.
Yeah, they're called runners, and they are, as you say, they are just your bog standard 28 Days Later infected who are just people who run at you. And you get the impression that they're kind of parasitic fungus hasn't really taken effect, so they're not that coordinated and they're not that dangerous. You can, if they get hold of you, you can fight them off if
Yes,
you're quick and
yes.
strong enough. But you've got you've got 3 more infected on
Yep.
top of that. You've got the next stage, which are known as stalkers, which are reasonably infected, but they've got like fungal growths on them, but they're not blind like the clickers.
Yeah, you
They,
can still see kind of facial features. You can still, they can still see you.
Yes,
is the easy
and
way of saying that.
unlike the runners who kind of mill about until they see you, these actively hunt you out in the dark.
Yeah.
And they're not fun.
No,
to say the
there's
least.
a scene where you separate from Ellie in the lift.
Yeah.
Like it's been a while since I've been that on edge for a game, and you have to get to a generator, and just out of curiosity, because I heard things go bump in the night, I actually crouched down and listened in, and I was just like, fuck that. I just saw all these stalkers just essentially looking for me.
Yeah.
And then when I managed to kind of take them out and get to the generator, I just heard them all scream again. And I didn't even bother getting down to listen to them. I just thought, fuck this, I'm running. And I just ran for my life. And as I was running, I just hear them chasing me. And like, as you're running past lights and floodlights, you see the shadow of them chasing you.
Yeah.
And
It's
it
so
was
fucking tense.
I've never had anything like that. I'm just like, whoa, that's just insane. But
I gotta say, stalkers aren't the most dangerous type of enemy, but
Nope.
they were one of my least favorite because they can still see you and they attack aggressively and fast.
they're kind of like screamers, because when they see you, they're really audible about it.
They alert everything
Because
in the
the
area.
next type, the clickers, don't see you. They can
No.
only
they hear you.
audibly see you, which by the term clickers is what they use. They kind of make this clicking noise, like bats do, essentially. And they then, depending on obviously the reverb from the echo, judge if you're there or not. So if you're hiding behind cover, you're fine. If you keep really still next to a wall, you're normally okay, unless they get really, really, really close.
Yeah.
But if they get close, you have to take them down. You can't you can't punch them, so don't even bother with that.
They will. I mean, one thing that I don't genuinely like this in games, but they are a one-hit kill enemy. They get up close in an aggressive mode.
Yep.
They kill you straight away. And now, as I say, I don't like that in games because I think it's cheap. But here, I can kind of forgive it because it just makes them this really dangerous threat. It's balanced out by the fact that they can't see you, and it encourages you to be clever with how you sneak past them, and you've got to be stealthy, but you can't just hang about because they will find you eventually.
Yeah, you can make distractions. You can throw bricks. You can throw bottles. You can even throw shit at them, just to piss them off, and then just run away, and they won't kind of chase you. They'll just kind of snarl a bit, click around a bit, and then continue on their merry way. And I think that balances it out. So, I mean, if you can get the drop on them, I think you can.
You can shiv them.
Can you hit them with the melee weapon if you've got it with the blades on? I think you can.
Yes, you can actually take them on melee if you've got an upgraded melee weapon. But the only other thing you can do, you can brick them in the head as well. If you use a brick as a melee weapon, you can do that.
Bother trying to grab them from behind, because I made that mistake, I think, twice.
You can if you've got a shiv, but not if you're unarmed. You can't strangle them to death. They're too strong.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Is it because of their strength, or is it just simply because they're just that unpredictable? You just don't know what the fuck they're going to do.
Well, I don't know. It never really goes into any explanation why clickers are particularly dangerous, but I always got the impression it was because the fungus has taken such a root in the human. It's now
empowered them, because the final infected is your bloater. Which is,
it's a tank, basically.
It's boomer. It's a boomer and a tank, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not very pleasant to fight.
Nope. When you first come across it, you think, oh my god, this is nuts. And then you throw, let's say, a Molotov cocktail at it, and it starts screaming and burning, and you kind of think, oh, this is good. But then it's running at you, and it's on fire, and you just think, shit, what have I done?
Yeah, that first one you fight in the gym with Bill, that fucker just would not go down.
Oh my god.
And actually, that's one thing that the bloater and the clicker have in common. They're both infected, so they've got their fungal growth that's kind of come out their skull. And that growth on their skull that blocks their vision actually acts as fucking armor.
Yeah,
if you shoot a clicker in the skull, it blows off its growth, and you've got to take a second shot while they're twitching and running at you, aggressive as hell. If you want a headshot, you've got to cope with that shit.
Yeah, it's very hard, and many times I've just kind of ignored them and maybe moved on to the next.
Yeah, definitely.
Goal, then just but I mean, definitely those bloaters are. I mean, they also kind of have a projectile.
Yeah, they're like a grenade almost.
It shoots, and it will, as it kind of shoots and blows up, it disorientates you, and it alerts other people to where that location was. So if you're there, get the fuck out of Dodge, because they're coming out to you.
They're not fun bloaters. They take such a punch, and
Yeah.
they are incredibly dangerous. And much like clickers, while they've got a projectile to throw at you, they are also one-hit kills if they get up close, where they pretty much just yank your skull open.
I actually didn't get killed by a bloater. I was very lucky, but my mate told me what happened, and I actually YouTubed it. I was like, oh my god, I actually want to go back and get killed by one.
Yeah, it cuts away just before the gore, but goddamn, it's that thing where it leaves you for your imagination to run wild.
I mean, even get killed by the clickers, it's weird. It doesn't get old, because they kind of gnaw into you, and they pull out like a strand of your neck, and you just like, first time I had to be, I was like, oh my god, I was really, really loud and audible, and I think my missus actually said, whoa, what's up, I was like, don't worry, it's just a game.
Well, that's actually one thing that this game does fantastically, and I think it's a good thing you can say about any game that manages to do this, is that it's incredibly immersive. That, you really, every time I got into combat, whether with humans or zombies, or infected, or because they're not technically zombies, but there was a sense of dread and tension, and it was like, fuck, right, it's game time, what do I do to survive this? And there was bits where, now this is a good thing and a bad thing, I'm coming up now, but there was bits where me and Ellie were hiding behind something, and I'd move around, as an enemy moved around one side of it, I'd move around another, but Ellie would stay still.
Yeah.
And the enemy would be like about to see it, and I'd be like, oh, for fuck's sake, Ellie, move. And then the AI would turn around, look at her, and not do anything. Now, for a game that is so immersive, it was slightly jarring to have your AI companions
just not
not exist until combat is triggered.
Yeah, you see, that happened to me, but it had a different outcome. And I mean, that has happened to me as well. But the outcome I'm thinking of is, again, when the enemy was looking at Ellie, she kind of looked at him, and there was a kind of moment like, shit, he's seen me, and she actually went to attack him. And I was like, whoa, that's actually quite good, because you can almost assume sometimes that she is a girl, she is going to fuck up, she's not going to maybe think about where her placement is, and these kind of things are going to happen. You're going to think, right, I need to kind of get in there and help her out, and I thought that was really good. But then, as you say, there are times where clickers would be quite blatantly walking past you. It's like, all right, there, Lee, how's it going? And she's like, yeah, not bad, you. And it's just kind of
you're right. I honestly think the game ignores AI companions until they're in a combat state, because when you're actually in combat, your partners will be attacked, and sometimes you have to come and save them before they're killed. Like Ellie will be pinned against a wall by a hunter who's about to stab her or something, and you have to shoot them off her, or an infected will be trying to chew on her neck, and you've got to blow them off before they get to her. But sneaking, generally, your AI companions are ignored, and it's not terrible, but it is slightly jarring for a game that is so immersive. But I always kind of think, I take a step back and think, well, was the alternative to have AI companions who trigger off like alarms constantly?
Yeah, I mean, and that would have been really frustrating, because then you just think that's just terrible AI programming, and
exactly.
You start going into that. But I don't think it ever would be perfect, because I don't know how you can ever program the human genome. But that is probably the
next
closest.
gen.
I doubt it, especially if it's always online. But anyway, I just think that this is probably the closest I've seen in a game to like an escort having an impact on the real world, and like having its own way and thought process in the game world.
Yeah, and to be honest, the enemies do as well, because they react very well to situations. Like there was one bit where I shot, there was the three guys, I managed to shoot two of them dead, and I was out of ammo, but I didn't realise, so I popped back up to shoot the third one, and I shot my empty gun, and it just made a dull click. And the guy said something along the lines of, oh, I know that sound, and then he proceeded to charge me with a fucking 2x4.
I've never heard that. That sounds awful. I know, I never got in that situation. That sounds
good. There's some other ones. And the thing is, though, as well, as impressive as the enemy AI is, because it is sometimes, I mean, there's one part where I got kind of start to initiate an execution on a guy, only for his friend to come up to me and drag me off him before I could complete it. Yeah. And I thought that was, that's fucking class. It was like a really good scrap. It reminded us of the fights from the Bourne films. And
it never kind of looks out of place as well. It's always really, really fluid, and it's
yeah,
always...
it's very well scripted, and it fits into any kind of environment you might come into. And I thought that what kind of helped that is the fact that you use the environment in these kind of executions. Like you'll grab people and smash their heads off the sides of desks. You'll put them through glass windows.
And I mean, when you do it, it's not just kind of a dull sound, and they're just unconscious. They have their heads kind of quite clearly badly damaged. There's blood on the desk or whatever, the wall that you've used. There's after effects, and they're quite visible. And you actually know that you've just ended someone's life by smashing their head in. It's really, really great.
It's brutal, and the combat here does carry a great weight to it, and it does make it feel, everything feels sickeningly violent, which sickeningly but also satisfyingly violent.
Yeah.
There is a kind of real satisfaction with how violent things are in this game, and it kind of, maybe I'm justifying my own psychosis, but it kind of plays into Joel's character, I thought.
Yeah, definitely.
That was pretty good. But as I say, the AI is pretty good in this game, but there are, again, instances where it kind of trips up. I've had bits where there's only been one guy left, and I've hid from him, and he started looking for me, and he starts talking to his dead comrades to, you go left, and I'll go right. Well, you'll have a fucking job, mate. So it's not, it ain't perfect, but for the most part, it is fantastically good. And it surprised me a lot, which is always nice.
They do seem to adapt. I mean, I remember playing a couple of scenes over just because I was always dying and just not being very good, and they never played out the same. Like, I was running thinking, right, this guy's going to come from here, and I would just get my head hit over the head. I would just get hit over the head with like a bat, and like, fuck, where did you come from?
Yeah, there was a few times when that happened to me, and it's shocking. It makes you go, fuck, and take stock of what the hell's going on. And, I mean, you're kind of disorientated like you would be if you got hit with a bat.
Yeah,
from nowhere.
I mean, it's only kind of a psychological effect, but it has that effect on you, which is quite intriguing, quite interesting.
Yeah, it's great. And what else is good about the kind of general gameplay is it's all accompanied by this really, really good crafting system.
Yeah, crafting system is quite simple but very effective.
Yeah, it's very effective. You basically are charged with, well, not charged with, you can collect resources such as kind of water, rags, sticky tape, sharp implements, kind of powders, and something else, I think.
Sugar was the thing, and explosives. So there was sharp things, binding tape, which is duct tape. You then have your alcohol, you'd have your rags, you'd have your explosives, and then sugar. Sugar's like a smoke bomb, essentially.
Yes. And basically, you would be able to combine two of these items to create like a resource for yourself. So if you got a rag and a bottle of alcohol, you could create yourself a medipack. But at the same time, you could instead use that to create a Molotov cocktail. And there's a lot of overlap between the different items that are available, like the sharp implements and the explosives. Now, you could use the explosives coupled with sugar to create smoke bombs, but you could also use the explosives coupled with sharp implements to make a nail bomb. Or you could take the sharp implements and use the duct tape with them to enhance your melee weapon to make it more effective.
Or you could take them and just make a knife.
Yeah, or just a shiv, which was handy when stealth's coming into play. So there's a great kind of sense of infantry management, and you've got to decide what resources are available to me and what do I need.
Yeah.
And to add to the already tense combat, if you don't prepare items before you go into battle, everything is crafted in real time. So if you find yourself on the back foot and really wounded and being hunted down by a large group of enemies, you have to retreat, find somewhere where you can craft a medipack and then use it. And not only is the crafting in real time, the using of these items is in real time. So it takes about 5 seconds of sitting there doing nothing other than healing up to use a medipack. And the even worst thing about them, in terms of ramping up the tension, it's not a bad thing, it's just great for tension, is that if you get interrupted halfway through your medipack and have to stop, you've got to start the whole process again. It doesn't heal you bit by bit, it goes in one block or not at all.
Yep.
So you've got to find somewhere to sit down and complete the process, or it doesn't occur.
And again, it just adds to it if you're getting hunted down, whether it be zombies or hunters. If you're not prepared, you have to craft. That's a couple of seconds. You then have to apply it as a couple more seconds. But yeah, you have to make sure you're well out of the way, otherwise it's just going to count for naught.
Yeah, and I thought it just added this little layer of strategy and this added degree of tension to proceedings, and I thought it was great. And it also gave me Fallout fever, and that I had to go around every room and open every drawer and collect every resource.
I was going to say, it's the other part of the gameplay from The Last of Us is the in-game magpie simulator, in the sense that anything shining, you will run towards it like, fuck yes, I'm going towards that.
But there's a few collectibles though, isn't there? You can
Yep.
collect Firefly medals, and there's a lot of notes from people in the
Yeah.
past where they just add a bit of context to certain environments you find yourself in.
I mean, going on to Bill, there's a note that you get off his partner, which I thought was beautiful.
yeah, that was
I thought
really
that was
good.
really, really good.
Well,
And
there's
there's
also another
other-
bit where you find an abandoned base, which was obviously populated by a lot of people, and more importantly, a lot of children. And when you find it, it's covered with infected who've been obviously there a long time. And if you explore enough, you actually find like notes that flesh out the backstory of this place, and it spells out this kind of quite tragic story of what transpired.
So it's almost like a vault from Fallout is the best way I can describe that.
Yeah, actually, that's a good comparison. I never thought of it, but yeah, I thought it was really poignant, that part of the game.
Yeah, and the notes never kind of seem out of place. They always you can always kind of believe that someone has left that note for somebody, or somebody has put their feelings down on some paper, thinking that tomorrow's never going to come.
Well, that's it. And the case of that one where you find the base, there's about 5 notes from the same guy fleshing out the story. But one of them is a diary entry. One of them is a note to one of his fellow survivors, and there's a few other instances. So they're different. The notes are all different purposes, and they feel organic to the environment.
Yeah, they do. They don't. You don't kind of go in and see like a military note from like somebody's house or something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Ellie picks up on that diary thing as well. I actually remember that scene where she's thinking about girls 20 years ago. All they had to worry about was looking good and boys, and that is it.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good as well.
I thought it was great. One thing else I'll say about the gameplay, and it kind of ties into the overall game, is that this game is continuously introducing new aspects to the gameplay to keep things fresh. So, I mean, the start of the game is basically a lot of running around away from things. Then you get introduced to gunplay, then you get introduced to stealth, and then crafting, and it builds on that. And once, by the end of the first kind of chapter, you've got all the core gameplay established. And then you've got 3 other chapters, because the chapters are all broken into seasons across a year.
Yeah.
And every new chapter introduces something that freshens up gameplay. So, like, you've got... in one part of the game, you've got Bill's bit where you've got a kind of a party going on the all offensive. You've then got there's that bit with Bill actually where you're trying to jumpstart a car, which I thought was really good.
I knew, when I pushed it, I actually took a while to kind of say to Bill, yeah, okay, let's do this, because I was like, I know we're gonna have to push this car out, and I know we're gonna have to take these zombies out, and I just don't really want to do it right now.
But I actually drew up a list of bits that kind of try to keep things fresh that when I was playing through earlier today. There's a bit early on in Bill's Town where you get caught in a trap and you're hanging upside down from the roof.
Wow, yeah.
And it completely disorientates you while you've got to shoot off these infected while Ellie's trying to free you. And halfway through it, as you just get used to this weird upside down perspective, the trap is kind of half undone, and you're yanked further up into the sky, and it warps your perspective even more than the first time, throwing you off again.
It's like the first time you get it when you're playing Tomb Raider, and you go upside down. It's a lot different. It's a lot more kind of scarier, because the only person who can save you is Ellie, and again she's a 30-year-old girl. You're not Lara Croft. You're not got like an axe in your backpack you could take out and cut off this rope, or you can't kind of shoot a pulley that will let you down. You have to rely on Ellie, and you have to protect her. And there's all these zombies coming in to get her. Yeah,
and not only is it like infected, there's a lot of clickers coming at you at this point, which will kill you instantly, even when you're hanging upside down, especially when you're hanging upside down. There's another bit where you've got to run across a suburb where there's a sniper trying to take you down.
That was brilliant. Yeah, that's probably in terms of just gunfights, that's probably my favourite, I think.
Yeah, it was really good. And what was even better is the fact that you actually get to become the sniper.
Yep.
Once you've kind of got to him. And I thought that was really good, because normally is this kind of a new section where you've got a brand new sniper rifle weapon, which you can't get elsewhere. It throws like hunters at you while you're protecting Ellie. It then throws infected at you, and then it even throws a goddamn tank at you to keep things varied.
You kind of see the tank is a character in its own weird way, because you kind of see it early on and you think, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah,
and then you kind of stealthing past it, and you kind of get spotted by it, and you have to run. And then towards the end, you have to, well, you don't fight it, but you have to kind of save your comrades from it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was kind of a bit weird how you kind of had to finish off. I didn't really like that, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it was a bit kind of
it was
circumstantial.
Kind of groundhog meerkat-y, which I thought was, I don't know, it just didn't seem...
Whack-a-mole.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to say it, whack-a-mole. It just didn't seem really right. I wish they could have done another way. But, I mean, up until everything else, the rest of it, though, is really, really well done. The whole sniper point, the whole kind of thing. And even just after that point where you've taken out the tank, the infected start coming.
Yeah.
And you think, it's all right, I've got a sniper, I'll take them out. And then they just keep coming and coming and coming. And there's a point where you actually stop shooting, and Joel just looks at them and thinks, yeah, we need to go now.
Yeah, let's just run the fucking hell away. I mean, you've got other bits where you're in a snowstorm and it obscures your view if you're running through it, but if you take your time, it can actually act as like cover for stealth attacks.
Yeah.
And it was a great double-edged sword, this snowstorm, and it looked beautiful as well.
It looked really good, the impact on the camera. You could see the AI being affected by it as they were lurking around and things.
Yeah, it affects them just as much as it does you. And I just thought it was great how it could be a hindrance as well as a help. I thought it just freshened gameplay up a bit.
Yeah.
What I honestly thought was possibly the biggest variety in gameplay. Actually, no, one thing before I move on to this is you get a horse in one bit, which I thought was nice. But I thought the biggest kind of switch up in gameplay was getting to play as Ellie for huge chunks of one of the chapters.
Yeah, I thought it'd be just tacked on, like a 5-minute thing, but it's a good chunk of time.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
You play quite a bit of it as well, and you're actually on the horse as well. But
yeah, the horse, man.
that scene was really good. But yeah, you're playing as Ellie, and she isn't Joel.
No, she is.
Even though she kind of is quite skilled, because I mean she's been kind of doing this now for almost for about 6 months, I think it is at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd probably say so.
And she's obviously kind of got accustomed to the life, but she's had to step up now because Joel is incapacitated. Again, you'll kind of see why that is when you play the game. But she has her weaknesses, but she has her strengths as well, in the sense that she's got a constant shiv.
Yes, a little trusty flick knife.
Yep, but her ammo kind of usage is very low, and she's almost terrible at aiming. And a long distance shot is very, very hard to pull off with Ellie.
She's good with the bow and arrow, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, but with the bow and arrow, she seemed very good. And
actually, it's funny actually, because when I was playing it through the build section, where you first get the bow and arrow as Joel, this didn't trigger the first time I played, but the second time she says, "Oh, can I have the bow? I'm a really good shot." And I thought, hey, it plays into the later part of the game.
Yeah, I can't, just you saying that reminded me of it. Yeah, that happened for me. She's like, and then Joel's like, no, it's almost like, this is not a kid's toy,
Yeah.
But then as you're playing as Ellie, and the first thing you do is you're hunting something.
Oh god, that fucking book! Oh my god, I hate that animal so much.
I kind of just kept running in and just fucking up. But yeah, I kind of got the hang of it towards the end.
It forces you out of frustration to get it right.
But you can see how skilled she is, and how kind of that is probably her strength. And I think the stealth scenes with Ellie, I use the bow and arrow. I think I only use the guns when I had to, like when the infected were kind of breaking in.
She's not all that durable. And one thing that there's a really good scene with loads of infected, and where you're basically forced to fight them. Joel, we've said before, Joel can kind of have fisticuffs with infected. Ellie cannot. She is a 14-year-old girl. She gets knocked on her arse if she tries to fight these infected.
Yeah.
And I really like that. It took away something that I've kind of relied on quite a lot when
I was running out of ideas, just Leroy Jenkins it. That's probably the way to do it.
Yeah, and to be fair, when you're playing Joel, it works a lot of the time.
When you're playing Ellie, nope.
Not so much. You could kill maybe one or two, but they would take so much health off you by the third.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. Yeah.
And I just like that kind of how it took something away from you that I'd relied, and it forced me to change of tactics. It forced me to go into stealth more and use my switchblade and my constant shiv, as you said.
Yeah.
And there's also another bit with Ellie where it's kind of like a boss fight, and it introduces a really cool mechanic where there's loads of broken glass and plates on the floor.
Yeah. When I first saw that, I saw the broken plates on the floor, and I thought something's going to happen here.
Yeah.
I was going to be there. And they kind of seem to be in a really obvious position, which I didn't really like. But when you're playing,
slightly undercooked because it seemed like it was introduced for this one boss fight. But I thought the idea of two people trying to like stalk each other was a really good dynamic.
Yeah, it is really well done, and it pays off.
Yeah, it's great, and Jesus Christ, that what's actually quite funny. I mean, we play as Joel for most of the film, and we've said this guy is a borderline psychotic, murdering bastard with a kind streak. Yeah, I think the darkest chapter is when you're playing as Ellie. It is fucking grim.
With David, yeah.
Yeah, with Mr. Nolan North.
Mr. Cannibal.
Jesus Christ. I just thought it was so uncomfortable and so grim.
Yeah.
And Jesus, I just thought when the game couldn't step it up anymore, it just says, hey, let's throw this shit
into it, yeah. And you see kind of the darker side of humanity. And kind of an innocent girl isn't spared from kind of all of this. And yeah, it's absolutely horrible. It's just really well done out. It doesn't seem kind of overly done, like it's just not being gritty and dark for the hell of it.
It feels like a natural progression. It doesn't feel out of place. And I said early on in the review, because this review seems to be going on for a long time, I said that this has a lot in common with the novel and film that was made from it called The Road, which is basically about the apocalypse. There's no zombies in that. It's kind of like an unknown apocalypse, so it focuses on the people. And there's a lot of instances of cannibalism in that, and like how far and how grim humanity will go.
I think most post-apocalyptic titles have that kind of sense. I think even
if you've not seen or read The Road, you should. Well, you might not want to if you don't like being depressed. But in the book, just going to give you an example of it. In the book, there is an instance where there has been a baby cooked on a spit because people are so hungry.
Right. Okay. I'm not going to read that.
It's they actually had to cut a lot of that shit out of the film because it was too grim.
Oh my god.
It's depressing as shit, and this kind of came quite close, but because it's a video game, they had to throw zombies in first to fight. But just because it's depressing doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. But yeah, I thought this game really varied up a lot of different sections, and I thought it kept things fresh, and I enjoyed pretty much every section of this game. There's a lot of games I like, and when I go back and play them, I think, this section wasn't too great, but so far, I think every section of this is unique and well done, and just very varied and exciting all the way through for different reasons.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, as I said, we've been going on a long time. God damn it.
Yeah.
This would be a quick one, but quickly touch on the multiplayer.
Yeah.
So the multiplayer is essentially a 4v4 team-based affair. It's basically, there's two game modes available. One is basically a deathmatch with respawns, kind of like a Battlefield scenario where you've got a limited number of lives in your team and it's first to whittle all the lives down. The second game mode is basically the same as a deathmatch, 4v4 deathmatch, but there is no respawns, which puts things on edge.
It's like Counter-Strike. It's like if you're down, that's it, wait till the next round.
Yeah, and it puts a real focus on the survival aspect of the gameplay, because there's one thing the multiplayer does very well is that it brings across the survival aspect and that kind of hard edge of the combat from the single player into the multiplayer.
Yep, the crafting's there, the kind of the necessity to kind of go in prepared, the stealth, the idea that you need to stick with your mates if you're going to survive this.
Yeah.
If you go on your own, you're going down. There's this. I can't put it any simpler than that. There's just no way he's going to survive. And I've been through so many games where people have just gone rogue and we've just lost because people just don't know what the fuck they're doing. And there's like 2 of us against 4, and it's just not going to work. And you can set up traps. You can kind of make ploys, and you can kind of ambush the enemy. It is all there, just in a kind of multiplayer aspect, and it doesn't kind of feel bolted on.
No, I love the multiplayer. I think it's really good. It's very unique. And it's got a kind of unusual metagame attached to it where when you first start the multiplayer, you're asked to pick a side. You're either going to play as a Firefly member or a Hunter. And you're basically, when you pick your team, you're then given a tribe of your faction to look after. And as you go and play matches, your performance in matches is converted into supply at the end of the match. And depending on how much supply you get, your tribe will either grow or diminish. Depending on your performance. Yep. So, like, say you meet your quota of supply for the match, your tribe will grow. But then the next match, you fail to get your quota of supply. You will find out a couple of your people go hungry, and one of them is now infected with the fungus virus. Now, it's kind of, it's not really, you'd never see a tribe or see any characters. It's more just a kind of metagame of stats behind the scenes. But it kind of was nice that it played into the overall theme of The Last of Us. And what else? There's a little bit of a story tacked onto the multiplayer in that you've got to look after this tribe over 4 weeks.
Yep.
And as you go over the 4 weeks, you can set yourself challenges. Like you'll get a notification when you're in hit week 2 that there has been some kidnappings from your tribe, and you need to pick like a task for yourself like a challenge for yourself to perform in multiplayer. To rescue them people.
Yeah, to kind of translate into a rescue attempt for those people.
Yeah, so one of them might be like perform 5 downed enemies. Down 5 enemies in a match, or in the next 3 matches, or perform 6 headshots, or stuff like that, really. And if you're successful, you get bonus points, and if you're not, it basically says you weren't able to stage a rescue attempt, you've lost them people, and you get no points. On top of that, it's kind of like a class-based, loadout-based affair, where you start the game and everyone's kind of got not really much access to anything, and as you level up and go through the weeks, you get access to better weapons where you can create more custom loadouts that are more effective. I'm never really fond of this system. I didn't really like it in Call of Duty, which kind of started the trend. But at least here, I would say that the standard loadouts are pretty damn effective.
I don't think you need to, unless you really want to get into it, have your own custom loadouts. The standard ones are going to get you there.
Yeah.
And then when you start unlocking the weapons, you can then add to it. But the standard ones are always going to get you there. They're never going to kind of hang you for high heaven. If you're in a team of 4, each one of you can pick a different loadout and you'll be absolutely fine. Because they're geared towards a person's kind of ability, whether it's a sniper, whether it's up close, whether it's a survivor, whether it's support. It will get you there. So it's good to kind of see, you've got these, but if you don't want them, you can go ahead and make your own.
No, it is nice. It doesn't feel like you're getting chastised or limited because you're not playing enough to unlock the new things. But what else you can do?
God, sorry,
I think you were going to mention.
I was going to say at the same time. I was going to say perks that you have.
Oh, right. I wasn't going to say that.
Oh, right. Okay, never mind. You've got perks. When you select a loadout, you can then select what perks you want. And there's different perks, such as you can label an enemy. So when you're kind of playing the multiplayer, you can label someone's about, and they'll turn up on everyone's radar. You can have a better shot, or a more steadier shot, or more ammo, or quicker crafting skills, or quicker healing skills, or quicker picking people up from a down state. So they bring that into it, and there isn't a particular talent that's going to make everyone overpowered and everyone's going for that. It just seems to be good for whatever you want it to be. So if you think I'm going to be a healer and support, I'm going to pick up that skill and I'm going to do a good job of it, and it probably will do you that.
Well, that's it. It feels like you can kind of enhance your playing style with these perks. They're not game-changing, but they do help you if you choose the right set of ones to help you in your play style. But what I was going to say is that as you're playing, you get essentially points on top of supply, and you can convert points into kind of weapon and body armor upgrades on the fly during the match.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I first got the notification, I was like, "What the hell is this?" And then you said you can buy armor now, and I at first I don't know why, but I thought, "Is this trying to sell me DLC? What the hell?"
Because you're so used to it in the current
I know. I thought, am I playing an EA game? But it came up in like the in-game currency, which is like parts, or it's like a cog essentially.
It is exactly the same resource as we got in Tomb Raider the other month.
Ah, right.
Cogs.
Yep, cogs. Cogs are the new thing now these days. But yeah, you can upgrade the weapon. So that's kind of like your kill streak, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, kind of. And my favorite weapon in multiplayer was the bow. I love that shit.
I haven't given it a try in multiplayer just because I don't trust myself to be that good, but I've started to kind of pick good places to snipe on maps, so I might actually give that a try now.
The bow, I really dug the bow. I get the most kills with the bow. I am terrible with guns.
The Winter Village, there's a house where you can.
Oh, I love that map.
I love that map. What I do is I go to the house and I put nail bombs the fuck everywhere, and then I just sit and snipe, and I'm usually on top. And then if I hear a bomb go off, I'll look and I'll check which one's gone off, and then I'll be ready to kind of take out the guy that comes up. So, yeah, I'll have to try the bow, definitely.
The bow's a lot of fun because it's stealth-based. People don't know where the fuck they're getting shot from, and if you're quick, you can get up a lot of bolts before, a lot of arrows before people know what the hell is going on. And I think it only takes 2 to put somebody down. So,
oh, is it that quick?
Yeah, it's really quick. It's really good, and if you upgrade it, it can go a fucking mile, and it's absolutely fantastic. I love that weapon, but yeah, you can upgrade the bow, and once you've upgraded that fully, it's just a lethal machine of death. It's amazing. Yeah, I'd recommend the bow. Go with that.
Yep, I'll have to give it a try.
So yeah, I mean, we've talked a bit about the multiplayer now, and as you said, I believe you said earlier that it doesn't feel tacked on at all. It feels like a fully realised, fully fleshed out mode of its own. It fits in with the overall mythology of The Last of Us, and it's a hell of a lot of fun, and it's quite unique. To be honest, the only thing I could really compare it to, and it's not really anything like it, but it feels slightly reminiscent of the Gears of War series, in that it's kind of cover-based, it's very small team orientated. You can down people and you can revive your friends before they die, and you can pick different loadouts. It's kind of reminiscent of Gears of War, but not quite as... It's a bit more freeform and less shootery.
Okay. I never got to play Gears of War multiplayer, so I'll have to take you.
It's but I mean, hey, compared to the Gears of War, isn't no slight on it really. It has its own identity, but I think that's the closest thing I can really think.
The thing I was kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm missing it rather than being disappointed, is I thought there'd be a co-op mode where you have to kind of take down some infected, not kind of an arena, see how long you last, but just kind of you have to get from point A to point B, and there's infected along the way.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping there'd be something on that multiplayer, because when it comes to multiplayer, I choose co-op over competitive any day of the week. I'm just more of a co-op support guy.
Yes, I would say I'm the same, really.
And when I'm playing these games, I'm always trying to help people, but people are fucking coming off Call of Duty and just, want to do their own thing, and it annoys the piss out of me. But yeah, I was really hoping something like that, and that's not there. So it's a bit of a shame. It's all competitive multiplayer.
Yeah, I got to say, I think they maybe missed the trick, but I do believe there is a season pass and there is DLC, so I don't know what we see. I mean, you said you would rather see a kind of a mission-based thing rather than a horde mode thing, thing, but I'd quite happily see a horde mode in this. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Okay.
I mean, I can imagine a horde mode would maybe force you across these really big, really open maps and force you to relocate and move from like bunker
point
to bunker,
point and place to place. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it could be a lot of fun if done right. But I don't know. As I said, there's a season pass, I think, for DLC, but I'm not sure. But
all right, I'll have to keep an eye out then, definitely.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where they go with the multiplayer and see if they actually support it. But at the moment, as it stands, it's a lot of fun. One last negative before we wrap up, though, with regards to multiplayer. I said I had a lot of glitches in my first 2 days. Multiplayer was nigh unplayable for me, not because it wouldn't work. Well, actually, that's a lie. I had 2 issues with multiplayer. The first one is I couldn't connect to the servers for the first day of owning The Last of Us. It kept getting halfway through the process and then bombing out and saying it couldn't do it. There was nothing wrong with my internet connection. I played many other games that night online, and I could browse the internet fine. So it had to be something on the
server side,
end.
yeah.
The second day, I could connect to the servers and get in, but all the text, every bit of text on the opening menus was listed as unknown string. And having never played the game before, did I hell know what all the text was meant to be. As I said, when you first go into multiplayer, you get to choose whether you're going to be a firefly or a hunter. Now, I wanted to be a firefly, but because I didn't know which fucking symbol or which outline represented which team, I'm now a hunter.
Yeah, you're my enemy.
So I couldn't really play the multiplayer because I didn't know what was going on because I'd never played it before, and everything was listed as unknown string, so it wasn't really playable. But after about the second or third day, that cleared up, and I've been able to play it no problem ever since, and I've never hit any more issues. So it's weird. It was a really ropey opening weekend, both single player and multiplayer for me, but after that, it's been perfectly fine, and it's been an amazing experience. I think this review has gone on way longer than I intended it to go, but have you got what's your kind of summary, and if you can kind of come up with a rating?
Okay, well, you give me the rating system, so I'll come on to that shortly. But summary of the game, it's an absolute gem. I think it's often said that the best of a console generation is always towards the end, and I think this is pretty much evident of that. The gameplay is phenomenal. The story is the best thing I've played this year so far. It's probably the best thing I've played in a very long time.
And I think, honestly, coming out with something like that, I think this year has been incredibly strong anyway.
Yeah. I also want to add, my wife is pregnant, and she actually watched me play the first 10 minutes up until the point where you know what happened, and she actually had to leave the room. Because it kind of hit her that much, and I was like, shit.
You know what? I gotta say, I got a bit emotional at that point.
Yeah, it's really deep, it's really gripping, but it's a really fantastic way to start a game, and it's just kind of evident to show, like we started this kind of podcast, that games have come a long way from your kind of glitzy, glamoury, colourful Mario to these quite in-depth, thought-provoking, emotional, tear-jerking games, and for that, I'll give this a definite kind of A+.
Right then, okay. Well, I'm coming in from a similar direction to you, mate. I think this is probably one of the best games I've played this generation. It has stuck with me. I've had it finished for about a week now, and I've kind of gone back and played bits and pieces of it, but it's been on my mind every day since I finished playing it. I felt like the story and the characters was incredibly well-rounded and incredibly well done, more so than you get in 99% of games going. I even think I prefer this to Bioshock Infinite's story, which I praised highly. I think Ellie's a better companion than Elizabeth in both character and gameplay utility, and I just kind of like this game a bit more because it was a bit earthier, a bit more my thing maybe. I applaud Naughty Dog for basically making a game that obviously took a lot of work and not milking it for sequels. It feels like a fully realised story that I don't feel like we'll ever see Joel and Ellie again, which is probably for the best, because I thought the story reached a very logical and very satisfying conclusion.
It doesn't, like you're saying, it doesn't need a sequel. It doesn't need a part 2. We've been told a story about what happens to The Last of Us, and that's it. We don't need to know anymore.
That's it.
It's done.
It was done so well. I wouldn't want to sully it with a half-done sequel. The gameplay is very broad, but works. All the different kind of cogs in the machine, as it were, come together to make this really robust and highly enjoyable experience. That's very, very tense and very, very in your face and aggressive and very brutal. And I loved it. I thought it was great. It just had such a sense of weight to it that you rarely get to kind of feel that when you shot a gun, it felt like you were shooting a gun. When you hit somebody with a weapon, it really did feel like you were just knocking the hell out of these people.
Absolutely.
Everything about this game is great. The only thing is, my opening weekend, I was hit with a lot of bugs, one of them which kind of took out the multiplayer completely, really speaking. And I'm kind of in a bit of a dilemma, because I kind of want to give this a gold star.
Well, I do want to do it because I've been told I can only give one, and I'm hoping to go on another podcast, so I don't want to give it to my other one just yet.
Yeah, I honestly want to kind of give it one, but I think the book, god damn it, it's such a dilemma.
Should we say A+/gold star?
You know what? We'll just get. You know what, I'm just gonna say we'll go with the gold star, because they're out of the games that I thought I might give it to this year, but I'm sure we can kind of get around it somewhere. So honestly, I think this game is well worth your money. I paid full price for this, and I haven't paid full retail price for a game for goddamn years, and I still don't regret a penny spent.
I'm a married man now. I haven't paid full price for anything for the past 6-7 months. So yeah, this is the first time I've done full price for that.
And it doesn't feel like it was money poorly spent. It's fantastic, and I think I'm playing through it again on the highest difficulty. If I make it through, I will probably play through it a third time, which is, for some, I don't have a lot of time to sit down and revisit games at the moment. I usually play them, and then that's all
That's
there is
it.
to it.
Yep.
So for me to really want to go back through this and enjoy it while doing so, it kind of expresses how much I did like this game.
Yeah.
So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, The Last of Us is just an absolute treat to play, and you should play it. I would even go so far as to say it, even at this late stage in the generation, it's a system seller.
Absolutely, yeah, I'd agree. I probably wouldn't play it again, just because I think it's just finished a nice end, and the memories I have of it are good. But I definitely would see it on multiplayer if you ever need a hand.
Yeah, we'll have to get together, man. Although I don't know if we can. I'm not sure if Fireflies can mix with Hunters.
I don't know. We'll break the cycle, me and you. The ultimate bromance.
That's it. It's like Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
Let's get a move on.